You've been listening to the Remotely We Are One podcast. Visit us at remotely1.com/podcast for upcoming episodes. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and download our episodes on your favorite podcast app.
Hey, don't forget to clock out. You're in Boston right now?
I'm in Manchester by the Sea, which is 45 minutes north outside of Boston.
Manchester by the Sea? What the hell is that? Is that a resort? Is that a boat?
I don't even understand that. We're talking English here, aren't we? Come on.
I'm in Gloucester, bub?
Oh, you're up in the North Shore.
Yeah, the North Shore. Yeah. Did you see the Casey Affleck movie, Manchester by the Sea? That's where that was.
No, I haven't seen it.
I mean, did you just say Casey Affleck? I mean, is that like is he a real person?
Ben's brother.
Oh, okay.
Come on now.
He's the other one. Okay.
Yeah, keep up with the.
Obviously, you're not from Southie. You're not
Definitely
from
not.
Southie, okay, Chief?
Definitely not from Southie. I spent time in Worcester. I spent about 6 years in Worcester, Mass, and we made it out there.
Yep. Yeah, no, I don't have the accent, as you can tell. So.
Yeah, what's the story with that? Are you not from Boston then?
I'm from Manchester, so yeah, like I grew up in Manchester. Also similar to like Bangor in a sense. It's right on the water. It's very small, like not a lot going on. And I'm here visiting my parents this weekend.
I'm not getting one thing of New England from. So do we have to drink for it to download? Do you have to talk to your friends for the accent to download? How does that work?
There's no accent. It's not coming out. No, This is it. This is what you get. I was in LA for 12 years, so I just moved back.
There it is. There we go.
Yeah,
okay,
I just moved back.
Yeah.
Right as the pandemic hit, we moved back.
Okay.
Where were you in LA?
All over. I was in Santa Monica, Westwood, Hollywood, Culver City, kind of you name it. I
lived in Northridge after I graduated from college.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah. Welcome back, everybody, to Remotely We Are One. I'm your host, Rick Haney, joined by my wise and handsome co-host, Colleen Clarkson.
Oh,
look at you, son.
Oh, I'm looking good, baby. I'm looking good. Thank you, man. Thank you.
We're on point for today, we should be, because we have an amazing guest that I'm excited to learn about.
Yeah, we learn a ton about our guests in the pre-show. I'm
more than you thought possible, I'm sure. Yeah.
Way more than I thought.
That's a good thing.
Way more I am so small compared to this guest. First off, she's from a town called Manchester by the Sea,
which does have hyphens in it.
Yeah,
right. That's the actual name of the town. So that's not a cruise boat that goes up to Nova Scotia and back. It's not a cruise. It's actually the name of the town, Manchester by the Sea. So that's funny, I think. She once started a blog called Featured Creature, which was an animal blog. And she's named a couple of these weird animals. Give us two of the animals that you've named so far.
So I named a small green spider that had these markings on its behind, the alien butt spider, which if you Google alien butt spider, you will see why that name came to me, or at least
eyes on its ass. Oh, yeah. There's eyes on its ass.
Yeah, spoiler alert, that's what it looks like. So there's that one.
Oh my God.
That deserved its own common name, because I'll back up real quick. Like the whole thing with a lot of these interesting species is that they only have scientific names. They don't have common names. So like no one wants to pronounce like elegans lectatoya, like it's too difficult. So we come up with interesting ways.
So wait, you gave it this name, the alien butt spider.
Yep.
Sounds like an awful horror movie. And like you're on Wikipedia for giving it the name.
Yep, I know.
Wow. Don't say your name yet. Don't say your name yet.
Someone took the time to actually write that on Wikipedia, which is...
What about the other animal?
So then there was another, also an insect, this time a caterpillar, that uses its old heads as weapons, and it will stack its heads on top of each other. That one I called the Mad Hatterpillar. Also for, to me, obvious reasons. So
There is no other choice.
Yeah, there was really
There's no other
I was
choice.
forced into that
Yes.
name.
Wow.
And if I were that caterpillar, I would not want to be called anything else. Truthfully.
Yeah.
Right.
It actually requested the name to me, and I just spoke for it. So.
I mean, that's some Dexter shit. It's creepy as hell. So our guest is interesting. I was on this TV show called The Startup You on ABC Family that featured her startup called, is it Pretty Litter?
Yep, Pretty Litter.
And Pretty Litter, I'm assuming the cat would pee on the litter and change colors or something like that?
Yep, it would.
Come
the
on.
cat pees on the litter. Color changes depending on if there's something wrong with the cat itself, and it would alert you to knowing that, like, oh, I should probably take my cat to the vet if it changed X color. You know.
Question: do they really put?
Science.
If you pee in the pool, does the blue stuff really go around you?
I don't think anyone's ever been able to verify that successfully.
Well, last but not least.
Moving on.
Moving on.
Last but not least, she's the co-founder of Notably, a boutique public relations agency. Listeners, viewers, please give Miss Carly Martinetti a round of applause.
Yay! Welcome aboard, Carly. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm excited to be here.
Yes.
Well, it looks like we're about out of time on this show. We'll have to come back next week.
Tune in next week.
Carly, thank you, first of all, for putting up with our warped senses of humor and constant interruptions.
I think we have similar senses of humor. So
No, that's good. That's great. That's great.
We're all from the Northeast.
Yeah.
We know how it works.
True.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. We talked a little bit in the pre-show about some of your experience, but I always like to kick things off with basically asking you, where did you get your start, and what was the spark that kind of ignited your remote career path?
Yeah, so I'm trying to think where to go back, but a long time ago, back in the olden days, I went to college at UCLA for psychology, and I thought I was going to be a psychologist. I thought I was going to do something that worked with people and helped them, and then I made my way winding through all kinds of different things. I worked actually at the Dr. Phil show at one point and used a bit of psychology at that point to help people and come up with interesting shows and things.
What the hell, Carly? What the hell? I was muted. I had to unmute myself. You just throw out you worked on the Dr. Phil show?
I did work on the Dr. Phil show.
I mean, we would have put that in the intro. I mean, like, what's Dr. Phil's like? I mean, is he good? Is he cool? What's the story?
He's really cool. No, Dr. Phil's really chill. He's like, he actually gives a shit about his guests, which is interesting to me. He's not like your typical, I guess, go on the show, do the show, get off the show. Like, he really would be like in depth learning about who the people are that are going to come on to the program. And my role at the time was to help source like who the guests would be. So choosing interesting people and stories. And so I did that for some time. And then I went, which you guys alluded to, onto this TV show because I had this burning idea for a company that I always wanted to start called Pretty Litter. And I did that. And then worked at a PR firm for several years on the West Coast after that. And that was my first taste of like remote working. So the first PR firm that I worked at was all remote. And this was pre-pandemic, like anyone even learned about remote work. And then when I decided to leave and start my own agency, Notably, that was something where I was like, okay, I really want to bring that remote working aspect with me. And all of the points in like my journey of working at all these different things, I found that psychologically, like people really do well with flexibility. Like, I think it was something that permeated like all aspects of what I did, whether that was like the flexibility of being able to be an entrepreneur and like set my own schedule and come up with interesting ideas that would help my business grow for Pretty Litter. Or maybe it was when I was working at Dr. Phil, like the flexibility of being able to not work remotely at that point, but be able to have like a kind of reason for developing these topics that allowed for so many different types of people to come on the show. And so I always felt like the flexibility portion of remote work is really what, at the end of the day, people gravitated towards. It wasn't the fact that, oh, you can work from anywhere. Oh, you can, work at your bed or
Right.
your desk at home. It's that you get the chance to choose what your schedule looks like, when you can do what you want to do. And really, it's more the flexibility than the remote aspect, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. You crushed it right there talking about choice.
Yeah,
Like you were
choice.
working at Dr. Phil with Dr. Phil, and it wasn't a remote job, but you alluded to the idea of you had autonomy. You had
Right.
the ability to be creative
Exactly.
and do these things and reach out to these guests that you felt like fit this creative idea, and then being able to go on to your own startup and kind of bring that creativity. I think right now that's, and I'm sure Rick, you can kind of talk to this as well. Once you get an opportunity to kind of control your time and to have more choice, it's really hard not to have those choices. What do you think about that, Rick?
I would agree. And I've gone back and forth several different times. I'm also a creative individual, so it's hard for me to get locked into that traditional mindset. I absolutely would agree that it's next to impossible once you've had it to have to give it up.
Yeah, I think the office setting personally stifles creativity because you're
Yes,
so concerned
it
with
does.
office politics,
Mm.
showing up and commuting every day. I mean, just the commuting alone, when I was in Los Angeles, it would take an hour and a half to get like
Mhm.
20 minutes away. And
Right,
Yeah.
so
right.
by the time you actually get to the office, you're so tired that your brain's not in that let me come up with cool ideas mode.
Yep.
Mm.
Whereas I feel like when you do have the flexibility of remote working, you can always make time for that. Like maybe it isn't
Absolutely.
first thing in the morning, and maybe it even isn't the same thing every single day. Maybe it changes different days, different, times of day, you're better. So yeah, it's just the opportunity, I think, to be creative that comes with remote working that I really enjoy.
The office kills creativity. You all hearing this? Like, think about what she just said there. And, like, she's saying it from her own personal experiences, I'm
Yeah.
assuming.
Oh yeah.
But you're not the first person to say that. What's the dude's name? Sir Ken Robinson? One of the most popular TED Talks ever, I think, is called something about how we've killed creativity, like in school and
Mhm.
all that stuff. Like,
Mhm.
being so rigid and not allowing people's minds to flow. We haven't talked about that enough, I don't think.
I don't think so either. I mean, you think about the number of, you know, specialty doctors, specialists, even like in the neuroscience world, we're all born with the same levels of, well, maybe not even the same levels of intelligence, but as babies, we're absorbing everything. We learn how to talk, we learn how to walk, we learn how to breathe, basically.
Right.
And as we get older, shit just gets chipped away at,
Yeah.
and we get dumbed down going through the mainstream culture, school, religion, employment. All these things are barriers to us progressing as human beings. And I think remote work has really lightened up on that burden and allowed people to progress more on a psychological level. If that
Carly,
makes
I got a question in regards to what it is that you do in PR. So there's been a lot of articles on LinkedIn talking about some of the LinkedIn writers going, back to the office and stuff. And even, I actually met with a writer from Bloomberg before. And as a writer, whether you're writing for PR or writing content for your company, I've just heard so many people say how much of a pleasure it's been to be able to write away
Yeah.
from the office. Can you talk about what your kind of day looks like and why you feel like a lot of writers who are doing this type of work feel like really passionate about being able to work remotely versus going into the office?
Yeah. Well, my job in general consists of helping my clients get positive press for them
Okay.
and about what their services are, their businesses, their brands. So I work with journalists to come up with interesting angles and cool stories that are going to potentially get my clients featured in the press in some way, shape, or form. So when it comes to writing, and I think this applies to both the PR side and the journalism side, because again, we're very much intertwined, whether we like it or not sometimes. It's a relationship that goes both ways. Journalists need PR people to feed them interesting stories, and I need to work with journalists to give them said stories to help my clients scale their businesses in a sense. So I find that basically being able to scan the news and have this ability to look for interesting storylines where I am not only seeing like what's being currently written about, but like what the white space is in those conversations. For example, I was working with a client where they do more asynchronous communication is their thing. They have a platform and a tool that allows for async to be more incorporated into a workplace setting. And I was reading a lot of conversations about what actually is being talked about in the news with regards to making a more productive remote work environment, actually. And one of the things I found that no one would seem to be talking about was this concept of rituals in the workplace. And how that's so important to being able to set yourself up for success. And so that was something that I ended up placing as an ink story on behalf of one of my clients. And the way that that all manifested was because I'm constantly looking for, as I said, like stories or story ideas that are tangentially related to what's being talked about, but hasn't been specifically addressed yet. And so to me, that's the same as what a journalist is doing. They have more time now because they are maybe not beholden to, again, going in and commuting and doing what they need to do from an office standpoint. They have more of that time to search for interesting stories, to speak with more interesting sources, to leverage a lot of the people that they might not necessarily have access to in a setting where they have to be, only conducting interviews in person. Because back in the day, like, you needed to have clients, or in my case clients, but for them sources, come and maybe be in studio for an interview, right? Whereas now, Bloomberg, for example, you said they do Skype interviews, Zoom interviews. Skype is no longer with us.
The Skype still works, right?
Yeah, I just feel like Zoom's the dominant. So, but
I used it on MySpace the other day.
Yeah, they'll take people and do Zoom interviews, right, from wherever they're located. So again, I just feel like it's opened up this whole world where you can speak with anyone, you can write about anything, you can have more creativity in the process of coming up with interesting stories from both the PR side and the journalism side. If
you don't mind me asking, what are you seeing as far as being the biggest challenges currently with remote work?
It's interesting. It's something I'm kind of like dubbing called flex washing.
Ooh, I like whenever you throw washing in there. You know what I mean?
Well,
whitewashing, whatever washing. I love it. So flex washing. Let us know what it is.
I think a lot of companies are using flexibility and remote work as like a recruiting tactic right now, and I'm seeing that a lot in their in their job description, saying like, yes, we offer flexibility when it comes to working. We offer remote options for you. It's always, asterisk star, like options. But I feel like to me, that's really more of a tool to lure people into the company, but not necessarily being transparent enough. That's not their core philosophy as a company. Like, they might use it almost as a Trojan horse to get a lot of candidates in the door, and then slowly transition back to the office. Like,
Carly, get me in this article, Carly. Get me in this flex wash. I want in.
Throw me into the spin cycle.
I think this is a thing. I really do. Like, I don't buy that every company is being honest when they say, yeah, we're going to offer flexibility and remote work. I just don't think that's true, because I don't think a lot of companies really want that. I think that they are still of the old mindset where I like butts in seats. I like being able to monitor who's working, who's there, who's doing what they need to be doing. And they don't give employees that kind of autonomy that they should be allowing them to have.
I love this. And yes. This isn't something that is just maybe it's happening. It's absolutely happening. And I think if you were to survey most people who are job searching right now, that's probably the biggest frustration. Mm-hmm. The very vague words that a company is using. So we always advise our clients, define what remote work means in your job description. Literally say what your expectations are in regards to this flexibility. And if you're a job seeker, like, it's easy to really identify what they're saying. If you hear options available for now, we're looking, and they don't even use the word remote, but they're saying we love flexibility. Mm-hmm. You're 100% right. And one of the things I mentioned in this HBR article was that to make sure a company, like, the culture fit is right, do some recon. Yeah. Like, go look at their social media profiles. You can tell, like, if social justice is really important to you, go look, when George Floyd was killed, and see if they said anything. Right. See if they said anything. Go, because you can go back to dates, you know what I mean? Go back before the pandemic.
Or also if they said it just to say it. I feel like a lot of companies too, like, use that, for example, as like an opportunity just to be, virtue signaling when, like, have they actually contributed any monies toward any organizations to help promote, police reform or anything like that. Like, it's not just about like putting a message out on LinkedIn and being like, yep, we support you. Like,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Thoughts and prayers.
Yeah. Thoughts and prayers. Right. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. So.
Right, but if you want to see a company that literally says nothing, that's even bigger. You didn't even have the emotional intelligence to go out and say, hey, we feel for you. So I think that's a great topic. I think you got to do a lot of research when you're searching for jobs. Thank you, Carly.
Totally.
Absolutely. Yeah. As a current job seeker myself, I could not agree more with that viewpoint. I see a lot of listings like for Indeed and sometimes on LinkedIn, though I prefer LinkedIn better, but it's almost like they're telling you what you want to hear because they've dialed into that psychological aspect of needing to find what you're looking for. Yeah. And they'll just toss out the verbiage like almost like clickbait.
Yeah. I mean, one of the questions I ask when we're hiring people is, what would an ideal job at Notably look like to you? That's perfect. One of my questions. Yeah. It's like, what do you want out of this job? What, if you could set your day up, what would it look like? And I have people, walk through what that would really look like. And if I feel like it's something where maybe they are more of that, like, I need to have the office and socialize and use that as my primary means of making friends, like, it's not going to be a good fit, because for our agency, we are remote first and we'll always be remote. And so I need to see, like, is it a good fit, a mutual fit, and being transparent with our needs too as an organization and making sure that at the end of the day, both parties are happy, right? It's a mutually beneficial relationship. That's what a work and job relationship should be.
Do you see a lot of people that get into it and then realize that maybe they were wrong about their expectations, and they've actually found out after they took the job that it was too much of a transition for them to make? Does that happen often?
I haven't seen it for us personally, but I've seen the opposite, actually. Like, most people have come from office settings and they're just dying to try out full-time remote work. And when they do, they're like, oh my God, I couldn't even imagine how much my life has changed. I mean, just actually today I was talking with one of my colleagues, and he was saying that he used to be an editor at a paper. And he was saying, this is the first time in about a decade that I've had Memorial Day off as a holiday, because for editors, they have to be working constantly through holidays. And it's, it's like retail. You have to constantly be on for the news cycle and all that. Right.
The news cycle. I didn't even think of that.
So his wife was like just flabbergasted that he had the day off and that they could actually spend some time together, And so things like that just kind of like bring me back to, this is not the norm. Like, it's normal for me because I've been doing it for so long to be working remotely, but it's definitely not the norm for most people to have that type of flexibility and time just to live and be human, like, outside of working. I don't know.
You said something earlier when you were talking about when you interview candidates that want to work at Notably. One of the things that we've been talking a lot about lately at Blend with people in the world is this idea of responsibility. Right? In remote work, there's responsibility on both the organization side and the employee side. And one of the things we've been talking with leaders about is how important, especially if you're fully remote, and even if you're hybrid remote, because you have a percentage of your population is not together all the time.
Right.
What do you think of this concept of creating a social connection strategy, and where do you think the organization's role is in doing that? So for example, you just mentioned, well, if your number one place to find friends is the workplace, well, this place may not be the best option for you, but like, shouldn't that be your responsibility as far as an organization to be like, okay, because where else do you find friends once you leave college? I've always said I would love to be in college forever, right? Because you meet new people, you're dumped in this place, you're living with new people, you're exposed to new cultures. That's where you meet your friends, in that place. But once you graduate college, you generally make your friends at the workplace. So if we know that that's a challenge, and we know that that's hard to do, what are your thoughts on an organization creating some sort of social connection strategy that ensures that all different types of connections are being made, from personal, or say lifestyle, we call it lifestyle, professional, and even intimate? What are your thoughts on that?
So I think there's also a difference between what you would classify as like how much social means in-person social. So for example, like all of the people who work at Notably, like we are always talking to each other. We have about 16 different Slack channels where we're talking about just random stuff. Like we have one for like dog pictures of our dogs and, talking about all different facets of our lives. And people actually have one-on-one just meetings with each other just to kind of shoot the shit. And so to me, there's like that aspect. And so that's, I think very important to be able to have in an organization the trust and like, social connection to where you're working with people, but that you actually know them as people, right? And not just your colleagues and employees.
Yeah.
Now, the difference is that we are not all in the same physical location, and there never will be, unless we do like a dedicated once a year or once every quarter get together.
Yeah, we're talking about all of those. So you have virtual connections, but generally when we're talking about like designing a social connection strategy, we are talking about, bringing people together. And then should you bring the whole company together? Should you do teams? Like to me, I feel like if you're a remote company and you're not planning, of course, the pandemic, like we always say, remote work during the pandemic is not no more remote work because you can't get together. But eventually when it's safer, if you decide to go to this fully remote work option,
yes, you need those connective points.
You must do those in-person events at some point. So
I totally agree.
Do you feel like as the CEO or co-founder of your company, like when it's safe, is that your responsibility as a leader of the organization?
100%. Yeah, 100%. I think there needs to be moments, in time where we all do come together, where we meet each other, where we have just weekends where it's not about work, where it's about having fun together and getting to know each other and asking questions like you guys have asked me, like, what's a weird thing that nobody knows about you, right? And like learning about each other beyond just what we do as an organization and our day-to-day jobs. I think that's 100% on the leadership to take responsibility to make those as standalone moments in time. And I will also say, I think it's important to put it to the group and not just make it about what I want, because
very good point.
What I want might not necessarily be what a lot of my organization wants. Like, for example, I know I have a couple people who have social anxiety, like they've spoken about that with me. And a in-person event for them is not all fun and games. It's not something where they're like looking forward to it for weeks on end. It's actually a very stressful thing where they're like, oh my God, I have to actually travel and I have to see people and I have to do these things. They're great workers, but that's something in their personal lives where they're just a little more worried about. So in that case, like I'd like to put it to the group and say, hey, here are some options for how we can all get together, how we can do things. Maybe you don't stay overnight. Maybe you like being able to just come for the dinner portion. Maybe you'd like to take a break and go back to the hotel for a little and just debrief and chill by yourself.
Right. Yeah.
So I think it needs to be not just a one size fits all, like team bonding, here we go. It needs
trust falls.
Like
Wow.
it needs, I think there's a lot more that needs to be talked about around just like, especially through the pandemic, social anxiety. I mean, like not everyone is so cool with being around people again.
Right.
Or had been prior and were forced to be in this position where they needed to show up because the leadership said, we're doing this, guys. See you there. And I just don't think that's right. I think it should be more of, if you lead an organization, the organization should have some say in what the activities look like.
Well done.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Totally agree.
Speaking of getting to know people on a human level, why don't you share with us something that a lot of people might not know about you? Maybe comical or something inspiring that you may have experienced?
Or what about, you have to be working remotely during this story, though. That's the whole point, right, Rick?
Not necessarily, but if that's the way you want to go, that's fine.
Let me think. So, okay. So one of the things that I like to do in my like free time when I'm not, it's again, animal related, spoiler. I really like animals. I don't know if you guys can tell by now.
Beautiful.
Definitely.
I really like to go tide pooling. So I'll wait until it's like low tide. I watch the tide charts. And when it's like a very low tide, I'll go out and see like what gets like caught in the rocks and stuff. And I one time found an octopus that was there, and it was a baby octopus. It was like this big.
Okay.
And I went to pick it up, and it crawled on my hand and bit me so hard that I have a scar on my hand from an octopus, which is not your typical scar story. I feel like everyone's always like, oh yeah, I had a scar from surgery or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, I have one from an octopus.
That's incredible, though. I mean, how many people can say I got bit by an octopus?
Oh,
yeah, so I think that's something, a fun fact that most people don't know about me is that like any chance I get, I'm basically off wandering and like trying to find interesting animals like in just my backyard and like around where I live and stuff. It's my hobby, if you will.
So if you did have an office, would you have dogs in it?
I do have dogs at home. I have one dog. Her name is Maple Syrup. She's 13 years old now. She's 7 pounds, and I have to give this poor creature about 15 drugs every 8 hours because she has like a million ailments. I mean, she's fine. She's like chugging along, but that's a whole other side hustle.
Would your corporate retreat be at a zoo? Probably not.
No, probably not, just because I don't like seeing the behind bars.
Yeah, I figured so. That was a bad question. So what about, would your retreat be at a safari?
That would be much more up my alley. And I did go to Africa, and I did go on a safari, and that was like the best trip of my life. That was really epic. So yeah, if I could fly everyone out for a safari, we'll have to make a little bit more, notably, I think, before we can afford full paid trips to Africa for safaris. But
I mean, you could have a safari at Manchester by the Sea.
There you go. Tide pool safari.
Right.
Yep.
Sebastian there, the little crab can be there and everything.
Yep.
It'd be pretty cool.
Oh, that'd be so cool. Cool.
Lots of crabs.
Carly Martinetti, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, you're so welcome. I mean, the pleasure was ours.
Definitely.
You were a sport to put up with our antics, and I can't thank you enough. I learned a lot.
Thank you. I'm glad. No, this was really fun, and I'm glad we got to chat about remote work life and animals and all things in between. So.
Cool.
Can you tell our listeners where they can find you on the social webs? Where can they find you, learn more about you outside of the butt spider Wikipedia?
Of course, yeah. Definitely check out the alien butt spider Wikipedia first and foremost. But then you can find me on LinkedIn, just Carly Martinetti. You can find me at notablypr.com, or you can find me on Twitter at prcarly.
Nice. Awesome. Wait, there's something I forgot to ask you or say. Congratulations on your upcoming marriage, wedding.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Congratulations. And
That's exciting.
Are you going to still be Carly Martinetti? Or...
I am. I'm keeping my last name.
Okay, well done. Okay, good for you.
That's okay.
You're a publisher.
Yeah, I gotta
too much
spill
stuff.
too much stuff under my name already. So yeah.
I get it. I get it.
Congratulations.
Awesome.
Thank you again. I appreciate
Congrats, and thank you for joining us once again.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
You've been listening to the Remotely We Are One podcast. Visit us at remotelyone.com/podcast for upcoming episodes. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and download our episodes on your favorite podcast app.
Hey, don't forget to clock out.